Okay, so we can start the session, guys. I'm sorry for the delay. Can you just confirm me whether the voice is loud and clear? Just one more time. We can start with that. Okay, all right. So we will start with this theory, division of labor by Durkheim. So we just started off with Emile Durkheim, and we have discussed about the theory of social fact. So we have defined social fact. We have defined social fact in this way that social facts are the ways of acting, thinking, and feeling, which are external to individual and are having a power of coercion by the reason of which they control over him, right? And then we have also discussed about the characteristics of social fact in terms of externality, generality, independence, and then constraining influence. In fact, these characteristics, you can actually get it from the definition itself, and we have explained that. And further, we have explained about the rules to study social fact, the rules of observation, rules of classification, rules of distinction, and rules of explanation. And we have explained that. And in the rules of observation, we have discussed about his concern for objectivity. And he's arguing that social facts need to be considered as things. And I've told you, you can expect a question here exactly like this. In fact, it was asked also the way you need to proceed also. And we have discussed about that objective manifestation and the collective representation of the social fact. Okay, so that's what we have done. And towards the end, I've told you all those things that we have discussed yesterday, like the rules to study social facts will be demonstrated in the upcoming sessions in the coming theories. That means we have discussed about one rule, rules of explanation. So the way you need to explain, you will be seeing today. So Durkheim will always go for a causal functional explanation. He always go for inductive approach. He always stress on theories, which is based on generalization, and he always go for objectivity. His concern for objectivity, you can see always, right? So why this separation between cause and function, you will see here, which is very important. See, one of the most important problem in functionalism is something called as illegitimate teleology. What do you mean by this illegitimate teleology? Is explaining cause and function as the same. So for example, if I ask you something, what is the cause of it? You will tell what is the function which is providing now, because you actually don't know what is the cause. So that is why you are explaining the cause in terms of the current function. But according to Durkheim, that's not necessarily the case. Something which might have come into existence, let's talk about religion. When religion would have come into existence before 2000, 3000 centuries ago or years ago, the reason would have been different. That means the cause would have been different than the function which religion provide now. So if you are explaining, if someone is asking you what is the cause of religion, you cannot simply talk from the perspective of function. So both need to be separated. Sometimes it can be same, but according to Durkheim, it need to be separated. Okay, so Durkheim always attempt or always try to avoid this problem in functionalism. What is the problem? Illegitimate teleology. How he avoid that? By separating cause and function. So what kind of theories he give? Causal functional explanation. So what he will do there? First, he will explain the cause of that particular item. So we are going to discuss division of labor today. So what he will do first, he will explain the cause of division of labor, why and how division of labor come into existence. What is the reason? That is one thing. And then he explained the function. So for him, the cause is different and the function is different. So if I simply ask you, what is the cause of division of labor? You may tell that the function which is providing. So what is the function? Productivity, profitability. This is what you know, division of labor, right? So you may say that it come into existence just to increase the production. What you're actually doing, you are telling the cause as the function which is providing now. It is increasing production, it is improving productivity, it is improving profitability. But if you're telling that it came into existence for that reason, then that's what you mean by cause and function as the same. So Durkheim says you should not be doing it. You have to separate it as much as possible, because it may be the same in some cases, but it is not necessary that cause and function will be same in all cases. So you have to separate it, and that's what Durkheim's attempt is. Durkheim's attempt towards avoiding illegitimate teleology is what you can see in terms of his separation between cause and function and giving causal functional explanation. Okay, so while explaining, it has to be causal functional explanation, distinction between cause and function, or separation between cause and function. Then we have also discussed one more rule, rule of distinction. So we will be demonstrating that again here also. What is that rules of distinction? Guys, for everything, for any social fact, in fact, everything is a social fact. Division of labor that we are going to discuss today is a social fact which comes into existence with the autonomous development of society, which is independent of you, which is having some constraining influence over you, which is general in nature, and all those things are there. Okay, so once you study social fact, there are two situations for any social fact, any social situations or institutions or anything. There will be normal situation and there may be abnormal situation. That's the pathological form. So Durkheim always want to make a distinction between normal and pathological. Certain rate of crime is normal, but if it goes beyond a limit, it becomes pathological. So you have to make a distinction between normal situation and pathological situation. So two type of distinction I've discussed now. First, cause and function, then normal and pathological. Okay, so we can see here when I discuss about the theory of division of labor, because I'm actually coming after the workout, that's why the voice having some issue. So when we discuss about division of labor, or in fact any theory, there will be four steps. First, we define that. So when we discuss about division of labor today, we will first define what is division of labor. Okay, it is nothing but splitting up of activities into a number of parts, which will be undertaken by two or more people. So you need to do some activity, you need to do some work. So split that and will be taken care by two or three people. That's what you mean by division of labor, simple definition. And then the second part will be the cause. So we need to identify the cause of this, which is very important. The crux of this is what the cause. And then we explain what is the function of division of labor. So we are separating cause and function to avoid illegitimate teleology. These words are going to be very important. It has to be filled in your answer. And then towards the end, we will discuss three types of abnormal situation. We will discuss all these, okay? So how we proceed further, it's like this. So let's first, so the theory of division of labor is what we are going to do. So let's first define what is division of labor, and I've done that. It is nothing but splitting up of activities into number of parts, which will be undertaken by more than two people. Okay, so you have to do a task. What if you want to manufacture a table? So somebody will cut the tree, somebody will polish the tree, and somebody will prepare the legs, and somebody will prepare the top, and somebody will assemble it. So this is what you mean by division of labor. Okay, if you are thinking about car manufacturing companies, somebody will fixing the body, somebody will do the interior, somebody will be doing the final assembling. This is what division of labor. So splitting up into parts, which will be undertaken by more than two people. Simple definition. Okay, now what is more important for us? We are looking for the cause. Okay, and then we will discuss about the function. Now, beyond discussing cause and function, I will have to discuss about two more important concepts here. I'll discuss when I discuss about. Okay. So guys, when I discuss about cause, I'll discuss a very important concept, which is known as mechanical solidarity. And then when I discuss about function, I'll discuss about organic solidarity. So they can from to like this mechanical and organic solidarity marker. They can ask you. Still, there is a problem. So I have some issues which is coming with respect to my internet. That's why. I think it's okay now. Okay, we can continue, guys. In case if there is a big break is coming, then we will try to manage it somehow. So as of now, I think it's okay. Yeah. Okay. So let's look for this organic and mechanical solidarity. Let's try to understand that first. So when I discuss about mechanical solidarity, I will be talking about a traditional society. And when I discuss about organic solidarity, I'll be discussing about modern society. So the cause of division of labor, he explained by taking into consideration a traditional society, and the function he's explaining in the context of modern society. Okay, so Durkheim's idea about mechanical solidarity and organic solidarity is nothing but his idea about traditional society and modern society. So Durkheim's idea about change from mechanical solidarity to organic solidarity is nothing but his idea about change from a traditional society to a modern society. Okay, so this is what you need to understand. So when I discuss about cause, I take into consideration that not me, Durkheim, traditional society and function in the modern society. Okay, so his idea about mechanical solidarity is nothing but traditional society. His idea about organic solidarity is nothing but modern society. So let's talk about mechanical solidarity. It is based on the traditional society concept. Okay, so what is that? Traditional society, like even like what Marx said, the population is very less, people are alike, people are doing similar kind of occupation, there is no competition, nothing, and people live in bands. Okay, and there is not much, no interaction between bands. Now when I say people live in bands, means like this, like in villages. So there is not much connectivity, no transportation facility, no advancements in technology, no forces of production developments, right? The material conditions are not that developed, so people live in bands with no interaction or very, very less interaction between bands. So in the society, the laws are repressive and the conformity to the norms and values are very, very strong. Laws are repressive means you do some mistakes, you will be punished very hardly. Now the current society, that's not the case. Reformative law, I'll come to that. That's a modern system. Traditional society, the laws are repressive, and because of that, you will conform to the rules, norms, and values. So the conformity to the norms and values are so strong in the traditional society where the laws are repressive. Otherwise, you'll be punished brutally. Okay. So here the conformity is ensured through the repressive laws, conformity to the norms and values. Now, Durkheim also used one word here, which you also need to write exactly. The collective conscience is very, very strong. Now, guys, conscience, this is the inner voice, and you might have studied this in ethics, which is very important concept. In fact, conscience, actually, they have asked the definition of conscience. So here we talk about collective conscience. That's the voice of the society. Okay, so society and the concern for society, and you follow society's norms and values, and that is very strong. The collective conscience. In some books you will find it is conscience collective. Both are same. Whatever you want, you can write collective conscience or conscience collective, both are same, and you can write any one of this. Okay, so what I'm saying is traditional society, the population is very less, people are alike, people perform the same occupation, people live in bands, the laws are repressive, and there is a very good conformity, the strong conformity to the norms and values because of these repressive laws, and the collective conscience is very, very strong. This society, this system is what he termed as mechanical solidarity. So for him, traditional society is based on mechanical solidarity. Now, why saying mechanical solidarity? There is a solidarity, but this solidarity is ensured mechanically through these repressive laws and everything. Okay, now I'll talk about organic solidarity later when I discuss about function. So this is the system in the traditional society. So I've explained what is mechanical solidarity. Now what will happen is, with time, population increase. Now, when population increase, obviously tools, techniques, improvement in forces of production, the same thing that we have discussed, will also come into existence. Now guys, here also he is using an evolutionary perspective. From traditional society to modern society, he's explaining organic solidarity to mechanical solidarity. So if at all there is something common in Marx and Durkheim, what is that? Both are using evolutionary perspective, both are macro sociologists. Perspective is different, conflict and functional. But what is commonality between Marx and Durkheim? Evolutionary perspective and this macro approach. Okay, so here with time, population will increase. He termed this situation as material density will increase. So he says material density will increase. Okay, now when population increase, he referred this as volume. Number of people means volume. Volume increase, advancements will come, material density will increase. Also, moral density will increase. What do you mean by moral density? Guys, this morality, ethics, and all these are different concepts. But here, when I talk about moral density, means norms and values. There will be more norms and values which will come. I'll give you an example. Let's say we have hardly 2-3 students in the class. Suppose, do we need to have more restrictions or rules and norms and values? No, right? It can be very informal. I will not be facing any problem. I can discuss anything. But when we have huge numbers like this, then if I just unmute like this, then some of you carelessly will switch on the mic and you may go somewhere, and that will create a big problem in the class, right? So when more students are there, we need more regulation, more norms and values. Yes or no? So that's exactly what will happen. When the population is more, there will be more rules and regulations or the norms and values which is required, like the way you eat in public, the way you behave with others, the way you talk to female. All these need to be defined properly, right? That's what you mean by when population increases, more norms and values. That's what more norms, rules, and regulation. That's what moral density increases. I hope this is clear. So with time, population increases. He referred it as volume increased. Material density increased because advancements in situations, conditions, in terms of FOP, development, tools, techniques, etc. Moral density increased because changes in norms and values. Okay. Now, what will happen is, earlier people were living in bands with limited interaction or no interaction. Now, with the advancements in transportation, technology, and all, people will have interaction. There will be interaction between the bands. Now you can interact between the bands. So when there is a possibility to interact, now what will happen? There will be access to activities performed in other bands. Okay, so there will be, you will be, now here some kind of activities will be done, here some kind of activities will be done. Now you can interact. Now that means access to activities performed in different bands. So now let me give you one situation. Let's say there is a doctor here. Okay, so earlier, what do you do? Whatever happens to you, you will have to go to that doctor. Okay, now you find a very good, better doctor here, and now the situations have changed. So what you will do now, rather than going to this person, you also, this entire village will shift, only go to that person. You will also start shifting to that person. Why? Because you have access to activities performed in other segments, right? Exactly, like that is what actually happening. I'm sitting in Kerala and you have access to activities because of change in technology, and you all are with me now. Otherwise, you would have been in your local town attending the local teachers, right? But what actually happening now? You have shifted, right? So this is what exactly happening. This is what I'm simply saying. So when there is access, what will happen? You will shift to the better. So this is what actually happens. What he will do? He cannot survive, right? If everybody is shifting to that person, this doctor cannot survive. So what he will do? He will try to specialize. So he may, now he cannot treat for everyone and for everything. He may try to specialize for eye or skin or any such specialties, any such specialization he have to take. Then for that particular case, people will shift to him because he is an expert in that. So what ultimately I'm saying is, traditional society, there are changes. Now access to activities performed in other segments. So what will happen? There will be a competition. Okay. So because now the situation lead to a competition. So when there is access to activities performed in other segments, automatically there will be competition. Now, what is the logical conclusion? The fittest will survive. So he will survive and the unfit will create specialization. This lead to division of labor. So this unfit will create specialization that lead to division of labor. Okay. So what is actually the cause of division of labor according to Durkheim now? It is not productivity. It is not profitability. It is nothing like that. That is economic explanation. But for Durkheim, it is because of access to activities performed in other segments that lead to struggle for existence in the current occupation. So this guy struggling to exist in the current occupation. So he is forced to create specialization. Okay, so when there is a struggle for existence in the current occupation, why? Because only the fittest will survive. And now we have discussed that this guy is the fittest. So he will survive, the unfit have to create specialization. So in simple terms or in one line, if I need to explain you what is the cause of division of labor, it is nothing but struggle for existence in the present occupation. You create specialization. So what is the cause? Struggle for existence. Okay, I'll just draw a diagram with that things will be clear. What I said is, this is the primitive society. Okay, and then we have discussed about people live in bands, laws are repressive. You can just write all those things in the block diagram. And then what happened? Population increase. I'll just write it as volume increase, material density increase, moral density increase. So what happened? Now people have access to activities performed in other segments. I'm not writing completely, but you can write it. People have access to activities in other segments. Now what will happen? There will be a struggle for existence in the current occupation. You have to write it completely, guys. Okay, struggle for existence in the current occupation. So what will happen? Now what is the logical conclusion? The fittest survive, unfit create specialization. So this is the logical conclusion. So this is actually the cause of division of labor. This lead to ever increasing specialization that lead to division of labor. So I hope the course of division of labor is done, and it's pretty simple. He talked about a traditional society and used an evolutionary model. When the population increased, moral density increased, access is increased, struggle was there, fittest will survive, unfit create specialization. That's the reason for. I'll just show you in a diagram, and then later we can go with the PDF, and then I'll further explain in detail. Can you guys see this? Guys, this just one single diagram is enough for you to write the entire discussion that we have done. Okay, so what we need to discuss, we need to first talk about the primitive society, which is based on mechanical solidarity. That you need to explain. That can be asked as a separate question also. And which is segmentary, means people live in bands with limited interaction or no interaction. Then population increase, volume increase, interaction increase, material and moral density increase. Now people have access to activities performed in other segments that lead to struggle for existence in the current occupation. The logical conclusion is the fittest will survive. So unfit have to create specialization. That lead to ever increasing occupational specialization. And that's the reason for division of labor. It's pretty simple, guys. In sociology, the theories, the name look difficult. The theories are actually very, very simple. Okay. So now what we need to do, we need to discuss the function. Okay. So let's now discuss about the function. Now to discuss the function, he conceptualized a modern society. Now, modern society means organic solidarity. So he's going to explain about organic solidarity now. So what is the typical nature of modern society? It is like very individualistic society, right? So the collective conscience is very, very weak, right? Because people are so individualistic. People are not concerned about society. People won't respect society. People won't respect the norms and values of society. Why? The laws are reformative, not repressive. Earlier repressive law, people are afraid. So there was conformity. Now the laws are reformative or restitutive. So people are not afraid. So people conformity to norms and values are so weak. The collective conscience is very, very less, very highly aspirational and individualistic society. Individual's achievement is more rather than collective achievement or society's, aspirations. So the collective conscience is weak, exact opposite, right? So this is a society he characterized as organic solidarity. Okay, now why organic solidarity? Is because there is a solidarity. Now why it is organic? Here in this society, the people are together only for one reason. That is because of some kind of interdependence. I'll explain what is that interdependence. Just like our organs in the body, right? They all are interdependent. Alone they cannot function. Just like that, we all individuals, though we are individualistic, though we are aspirational, and we are not much concerned about society and social order and social aspirations, we are looking for our own aspirations and maximum our own family only. Okay, so still we all are together. That is why organic solidarity. Just like organs in the body, just that if you need to survive, you need to be connected. Why? What is the reason? It is because of division of labor. This is going to be the function also. So guys, in the modern society, which is based on organic solidarity, people are interconnected because you have to get something from someone. You don't have everything with you. You have to depend on a teacher, you have to depend on a doctor, you have to depend on an engineer, you have to depend on a class teacher or a shopkeeper, right? So there is a dependency which is there to different people. Now he's also giving a statement: we seek in others what we lack in ourselves. So obviously, we will have to connect with people. Now, this connection is possible because of this division of labor or because of this occupational specialization. So for getting something done, you have to depend on, you are here for sociology, right? So you have to get it done from me. That's why you're here. That is why we are getting connected. Like that, we seek in others what we lack in ourselves, and associations are formed wherever there is a true exchange of service. He also give a very good statement: while we like those who resemble us, we are also drawn towards others precisely because they are different. So we like those people who are with us, but at the same time, we are drawn towards others also because they have something different to offer. Okay, so I hope things are clear. This is what there is an interdependency which is actually created in the modern society. That interdependency is in fact functional because that lead to integration. So what is the function of division of labor? It integrates society in terms of organic solidarity. So the integration is definitely functional. So what is the function of division of labor? It integrates people. If there was no division of labor, people would not have been together. People are so heterogeneous, so aspirational, so individualistic. In this society, what force holds that individuals together? What force holds all of us together? It is just the division of labor. I hope things are clear. So what is a cause? Cause is struggle for existence. What is a function? Function is integration. So did we separated the cause and function? Yes. That's what you mean by to avoid illegitimate teleology, make the cause and function as separate. Okay, so I'll once again tell that organic solidarity, he's explaining organic solidarity with the conceptualization of a modern society. Modern society means so advanced, so aspirational, so individualistic, so heterogeneous. People are not much connected with society. The collective conscience is very less. The norms and values conformity is very less. The laws are restitutive or reformative. Laws don't have the power to make you to conform to the norms and values in modern society. So in this society, what holds the individual together? It is organic solidarity. It is the division of labor. It is that interdependence which is created. And this interdependence is functional. We all are dependent upon each other. In the modern society, people are dependent upon each other. So we seek in others what we lack in ourselves. We can't have everything our own, right? So we have to depend on people. Just because of that dependency, there is an integration in the modern society. Otherwise, we don't care for others. We don't look for others. We don't even talk to others. Okay. So that's it. That's about the function. Is it so simple, right? So what is the cause? Struggle for existence. What is the function? Integration. So we clearly separated cause and function. This is a causal functional analysis. Now what we need to also discuss about the abnormal form. There are three abnormalities. One is anomy division of labor. Now guys, anomy means a situation of normlessness. You don't follow norms and values. That situation is what anomy division of labor. Second is forced division of labor. Like you are forced to do certain things, then that is not going to be functional. Otherwise, division of labor is functional. It creates interdependence and integration. But forced division of labor, like you want to become an engineer, but you're forced to become a doctor, then what will happen? You cannot do anything, right? That will not integrate people. That will create problem for society. So forced division of labor is an anomy situation. Okay, that means a pathological situation. Anomy division of labor, like you are not following the rules and regulations, that is also pathological situation. Third is inadequate organization. The work and everything need to be organized properly. If not, it is not that everybody should be getting something to do. What you need it to be organized properly. Okay. Now, most important point, when I discussed about the function, I have discussed the function by using functional perspective. That means it integrate people. What Marx said, it disintegrate people, right? It create antagonist cooperation. So this is what the difference. So if you're getting a comparison between division of labor by Durkheim and Marx, we have not done separately division of labor. Don't think that we have done division of labor everywhere. Alienation is all about division of labor only. So don't think that we have not done. This is what normally students will think, and they just keep on writing only Durkheim by expecting that it's a mistake done by the examiner. You get nothing if you're not making any difference. So there's the first and most important difference in the perspective. Now guys, one more function Durkheim tells us, listen this very carefully. This division of labor is giving the individual much required autonomy to produce. Now, when you're undertaking specialization, what is actually going to happen? You're going to be an expert in that area and you're going to decide everything of that, right? So this is giving you much more freedom and much more autonomy in that field where you can excel, where you can explore more. So according to Durkheim, division of labor is fulfilling yet another function by giving or granting the individual much required autonomy to produce. Now you can produce. You're getting that autonomy. You're free to do anything in that area, in your own area. But what Marx says, exact guys, this is a comparison that you need to make. And you won't get this in textbooks. That's why you are attending these sessions, to make it simple, right? You cannot find, how can you find these things in the textbook? Nobody will write it like a guide, right? So this is what you need to make the link and the connection. This is what you need to stress on, what Marx says. Because of division of labor, it hinders creativity. What is that word we used? Hinders creativity. What you will write there? It is giving autonomy for Durkheim. So what, according to Marx, what it lead to, what situation it will create? Alienation, right? So division of labor hinders creativity and it will lead to alienation. So there are many other comparisons which you can find and which you can write, but these two are what you need to focus on, stress on, because for any question, we need the thread, right? This is the thread from where you need to develop on. So this is where you need to focus on these two. One is with respect to the perspective. The other is respect to this autonomy point and the alienation point. Okay. Then both are giving different solution. Marx is talking about communism, there will be solution. Durkheim also talk about the concept of communism, but that is not for Durkheim, it is not permanent problem. For Marx, it is a permanent problem. Durkheim, it is a temporary abnormality. That three situations, right? Anomy, forced division of labor, inadequate organization. These are temporary abnormality, which need to be solved within the mode of production. But for Marx, entire mode of production need to be changed. Okay. So that's how you will be writing the comparison. So let's go with the PDF now and we'll discuss more. Okay, so guys, this is the course that we have explained. And then the function is coming here. And then the abnormalities. These are the abnormalities. And then what is this? Can anyone explain this one, this diagram? So when I talked about mechanical solidarity and organic solidarity, what is actually happening here? With time, mechanical solidarity is coming down, right? That collective conscience is coming down, social concern is going, so it is getting to zero, and organic solidarity is increasing. That's what you can write. So if the question is asked on 10 marker about organic mechanical solidarity, just write that and then just go with this diagram. It is coming down on one side and organic solidarity is going up. So let's go with the PDF. These are the questions: organic and mechanical solidarity. What is division of labor? Discuss Durkheim concept of division of labor. What, according to Durkheim, is the relationship between individual and society? Discuss in the light of division of labor. Individual, while becoming more autonomous, comes to depend more heavily on society. Discuss in the context of division of labor, right? This is what towards the end I've explained. You are getting that autonomy. That means you are now more dependent on society. Because otherwise you won't get job, right? You have to get people to you. So you are autonomous. Yes, you are going to excel in that area, but now you are more dependent on people. Okay, you are more dependent on society. Okay, so let's discuss this now. Okay, so 4 parts: definition, cause, and then function. Why separation? To avoid illegitimate teleology. Then abnormal form. According to Durkheim, society is sui generis, and the individual consciousness is determined by the collective conscience. Collective conscience is nothing but reflected in the form of various social facts. Thus, Durkheim gave primacy to society over individual. All these we know. At the same time, maintenance of social order or the integration of society is the dominant concern in Durkheim sociology. Individual is bound to society in various ways and with the intermediation of different social facts. Durkheim's study of division of labor is one such attempt to identify that social states which binds the individual together. And that's what we have identified, right? Which social fact or state binds the individual together? He identified it as division of labor. Okay. Durkheim observed in modern society where heterogeneity, complexity, and differentiation is found, people are too individualistic, people are too aspirational. Then what holds the society together?